a look after lunch if you have it, because that
Find
would
it.
be
Yeah. It's definitely.
thank you.
Need to find it.
So started recording again. So what we need, once we've got that target customer in mind, so if we've been that specific, you can either do, you can do it one or two ways. One is that you start with what you're selling. So actually for different restaurant chains, we might do that. So we think, okay, so we've got a value pizza brand. So therefore the target customers could be, so we've got product wise, we know we sell a limited range of pizzas. We've got price wise, we know that we're selling at sort of £5 to £7 an average meal, and then sort of drinks are £2 on top. So we're averaging about £10 average spend per head. Place, we're doing both takeout, but also we're doing sort of the out of city sort of shopping areas, so the retail parks, that's our place. And then promotion, we do some local bus stop advertising, and so we just sort of keep our promotional costs quite local, and we do local flyering to those restaurants, so we do sort of promotional offers. So we've started with the restaurant first, and then we've looked at how we're going to actually then use the 4Ps to attract people who live within 5-minute drive, and they tend to have a certain profile, so they're going to have a certain sort of income because the houses around there are a certain sort of price point, and it might be that they've got quite a high level of rental properties in that area. So we've sort of worked out what we've got, and then we've reverse engineered it, how we're going to sell it. Another way of doing it is looking, and that actually can work, like the example we might get with where we're looking at a product, one of the ranges from Aston Martin, one of the models, and then we're looking at the ideal customer. Or the other way is to start with more of a blank sheet and go, actually, our ideal customer is this is their interest, this is their behaviours, this is their income, and what they'd then like is a product that costs that has these benefits, that costs this amount. In order to service them well, we need to be available at these places, and this is how we're going to promote it. So we can do it based on the customer, or we can do it the other way around, based on the offering first. But whatever we do, it has to stack up. So in terms of the marketing, for example, on the PR side of it, what's the key messages, Joe, that you put across in your PR about have you got sort of key things that you have to reinforce about, there are a key set of brand values?
Not necessarily.
I imagine it's all very high end though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you give us some examples of some of the sort of stories or some of the sort of types of things that you've done then? So just give us a flavour.
Yeah, sure. So I'm trying to think of sorry.
It's fine.
It's my work phone. Sorry, I got that there. So yeah, just particularly around car launches. And yeah, I suppose because there's different elements of PR. There's obviously the product side, the corporate side, and then the more sort of lifestyle side as well. So we have the kind of 3 different pillars within PR.
Okay. Yeah.
So more recently, from a sort of obviously our F1 announcement, that was like one of the big ones.
And what category would that go under? Is that under corporate or lifestyle?
It kind of links more into sort of like the corporate side and sort of product as well.
Yeah.
Given that, because obviously we're actually basing one of our new products as well, sort of using Formula 1 technologies as well.
Oh wow.
So it kind of like bounces off quite nicely from each other.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of nice bit of storytelling as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that works really well with the integrated program though, that you've got, so we've got sort of, in terms of the brand, we've got something with a very clear market position. That's a very elevated position. It's a very aspirational product with an attractive global positioning. The corporate is all going to support that in terms of, but the role of the corporate isn't necessarily about selling product. It's also about the shareholder reinforcement, isn't it, and investability. The product will drive the sales and the interest in the brand and the interest from on the corporate side. And then what was the third bit? The lifestyle, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's reinforcing, isn't it? You've got a strong brand, so you don't need and you haven't got the budget to do lots and lots, have you? But it's all on brand. Does that make sense? Isn't it?
Yeah. And I think with the lifestyle, sort of targeting that kind of relates more to our actual customers. Whereas the sort of more product and corporate, that's more kind of sort of wider public knowledge. But if you look at some of the lifestyle publications that we work with, they're the kind of publications that our customers would read and
Give us some
or potential
examples then. What
customers.
sort of things are they? What sort of lifestyle magazines or?
So we're quite high end ones, so ones like GQ, like Tempest magazine, ones that you'll kind of find in sort of like kind of business lounges, things like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, so it's very targeted, isn't it, in terms of, and then there probably is some ongoing communications with regular customers, and they will be beautifully crafted, whatever they are. You know, they're going to be about nurturing those relationships. It's an account management business in some ways, isn't it, because of the value of the purchase. You know, it's not a 20% off if you buy now. You know, it's so far from that. It's the other extreme, isn't it? Okay, so that's this idea here of and actually our integrated marketing program will depend on our customer base, but also depend on the product or offering that we're selling. So depending on the restaurants and their sort of nature of them, we'll do different plans. Customer relationship management is where we're considering all the steps in the customer journey. So we're looking at what conversations. Do you know what we're trying to do with marketing now is to create customer communities. Are any of you sort of part of, have you got brands that you really love that you sort of are quite proactive in their brand, that they have sort of online presence that you read or engage in? You know, can you think of any examples where you've got quite a close relationship with a brand?
I wouldn't say I've got a close relationship, but Mazda UK's Facebook page, if it's snowing, they say, show us pictures of your Mazdas in the snow and show us pictures of your Mazda in the sun, that kind of thing. So it gets people with Mazdas to put pictures of their Mazdas in the comments, and then they'll go, oh, your Mazda's looking great and stuff like that. It's kind of cheesy, and I always have a look through because it's kind of cute. And then sometimes somebody with the most comments might get a Mazda sticker or something, which I think
okay.
It's really, in a way, it's really nice. Kind of cheesy, but kind of nice at the same time.
But also, I think it's easy to do something where people are quite passionate about a particular brand or they're quite engaged with it. And if it's a car brand, there's an idea of something called self-concept, and it's how we see ourselves. And actually, our acquisition of certain brands develops that. So if you've got, for an Aston Martin owner, that's quite key, because actually they'll see that as part of their identity. And the same, you know, it doesn't just have to be it could be sort of Mazda, where you see, you know, it says something about you, that you are quirky, a little bit fun, don't take yourself too seriously. Do you know what I mean? It sort of supports that, doesn't it? By having that. I'll tell you, this is just going to seem such a silly example, but it's a company that have done this sort of whole idea of co-creation really well. Walker's Crisps. So, you know, there are campaigns with things like Do Us a Flavour, where you get to vote on certain flavours, and they did that really right at the sort of before anyone else was really thinking about this sort of co-creation of brands. They are so smart, because they do things like with the promotion. They obviously use Gary Lineker in it, and the reason that's so clever is there's something called culture of origin, and this is where the origin of where someone comes from. So in his case, Leicester, the reason why that's important. So he's seen as quite a wholesome brand in himself, and sort of quite a likable, sort of approachable, that sort of thing, and quite successful as well, but not in an arrogant way. He comes from Leicester, and Leicester is where Walker's main factory is. So it all ties together as part of their story. And yet, if we were to go to America and buy the equivalent of Walker's Crisps, it's Lay's. If we were to go to Australia, it's Smith's. So they've got a global brand that feels local to wherever they're at. So that's a really good example, I think, of creating a really good close connection with their customers. Because Walkers do feel British, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so they managed to do that. they feel like a local hero, but actually we don't really think that it's part of sort of the, I think it's part of the PepsiCo family actually, but you don't know, you don't need to know, do you? So just have a think about how we're going to create that ongoing relationship with our customers, but we must do it in a way that they don't feel, as in a rude way, they don't feel a bit shafted, that we're not like we've lied to them in any way. So we need to be transparent, but also we want to appear genuine. This has been a big problem with Cadbury, you know, because Cadbury were owned, I think it's owned by Mondelez now, and they've changed things like the Cadbury cream egg, the formula recipe a few years ago, and that caused a huge amount of controversy. You know, things aren't necessarily made in the UK anymore, and this whole thing where it got a lovely story, but it doesn't feel real anymore because it's not as connected, if that makes sense, with the locality. So we don't, you know, they've lost a bit in terms of that customer relationship. Any good ideas? Have you got anything that you think works really well in terms of customer loyalty or retention schemes? Is there anything that you engage with that works?
What, in terms of Aston Martin, sorry?
No, just in terms of, no, I'm thinking more just in general.
Or me?
Yeah, you personally. Are you?
Yeah, to be honest, in a minute, it's hard. I don't feel like I've done anything for like in 2 years because of the lockdown. I don't know. Like,
Does anyone use like Garmin, or have you got any sort of like fitness things that you know, any tracking?
Apple Watch.
And does that give, do you feel part of a community there? Does it sort of engage you in lots of ways and give you lots of information and stuff, or useful stuff?
Yeah. I was going to say, so Foot Asylum, so on their app,
Yeah.
whenever you purchase something from them, you can then get points, and
Oh,
then
okay.
those points then add up to then be, you can then use on your next purchase.
Yeah.
Once you've built a significant amount. So I suppose that's good for sort of loyalty and retention then.
That's
you know,
a really good example.
you
Yeah.
kind of get this feel that, oh, you know, like if you keep buying, then your points go up, so you don't feel as, you know, like guilty of buying stuff because you feel like you're gaining something at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Back to the marketing exchange. So I might be paying something and actually I might really not have the money to do it, but in exchange I'm also, you know, getting some credit towards something else.
Yeah.
So that's really good, and this sort of idea that we can actually trace it as well, and we can see what we've got, and also gives you
Something
more
satisfying when you see the numbers go up, the number of points you get, it just makes you want to get more and more, doesn't it? So
yeah, there's a sort of target, a sort of quite a basic thing really, isn't it?
yeah.
It's easier to do things like that when you have less highly involved purchases, and highly involved is where we have to put a lot of thought and effort and sort of in, but easy purchases, the restaurant should be a fairly easy purchase.
what,
It
like
shouldn't.
coffee card.
Oh yeah,
Tesco club cards are a really
I
good
know.
example, because you could give, they've got that advert where that woman's pointing it at the shelves and it makes
yeah.
things cheaper and stuff. So I think that's a good example as well.
It
Tesco
is.
coffee card's actually good, actually, isn't it? I think 'cause, yeah, my parents were always raving about that.
And they didn't used to. So it used to be you were just rewarded with what you bought. And if you remembered your Tesco's club card, then you got a certain amount of money that could be converted to whatever. Okay. But now you have to do it to get discounts in store. So they have changed the way that they're doing that to increase loyalty, but also the data. It gives them so much data, doesn't it, about profiles of purchases, things like that as well. And actually, yeah, everyone, there is this concept, no matter how rich people are, in fact, that sometimes the richer they are, the more they like a bargain, you know, because they like to think they're intelligent, don't they? We're savvy. So,
Or tight.
or tight, yeah. Or yeah.
No, yeah, you know what I mean? That's how you stay rich, isn't it?
Well, do you know what? So I live on quite a nice, you know, you can tell you call it a development when you think you're posh rather than an estate. So I live on a nice estate anyway, and it had a Chinese restaurant opened, and because it's quite a posh estate, everyone was so tight, like it closed. And yet over the road, there's like a poorer area in Rugby, and obviously the fish and chip shop there, people buy from 3 times a day. They buy for breakfast when they get up at about 11ish, then after they've been to the pub in the afternoon, then before they go to bed. So actually, you know, people's you're right about the tight thing, because people just sort of like to think they're really, you know, good with their money. It's a sort of reverse psychology, I think. Actually, the least people get, sometimes the easier they spend it.
And it's almost like you see kind of like poorer people, they're the ones buying the designer clothing or that just to look, just to look rich, whereas the rich will just kind of buy your basic t-shirts.
Do you know what it is? They've got nothing to prove. That's what it comes. That's the ultimately, and that they did this. There was some research on cheap coffee when it came into supermarkets, own brand coffee, and the people who bought it were the rich people who didn't have anything to lose, because if you came around my house and saw I got a fancy house and you see I buy some cheap coffee, so what? But actually, the poor, the people with less money couldn't afford to make a mistake because they couldn't afford to buy it again.
Yeah.
So you'll see, it is a reverse psychology. So it's the sort of rich people that are queuing up outside Aldi to get the super special buys. Very.
It goes with that perception. It's like the poorer people then want to buy the high quality coffee just to make themselves look. Say if they're going to have people around or something like that, they'll try and go that extra mile.
Yep.
And again with like their clothing and stuff like that, just to give that perception, but it's false ultimately.
It's this idea of yourself again, this sort of concept of sort of buying. It's your ideal self, how you want to buy into, how you want to be seen. So it's this idea, if we wanted to make a lot of money, and this is really unethical, we'd go around a poor area and we'd put leaflets through the door for cosmetic surgery, and we'd do it on a pay £2.55 every month, and you can have whatever, and people would do it. It's really bad. It's sort of, but yeah. Interesting, because it's sort of, there's issues with ethics there. So just in terms of marketing and how it's changing, we've got a growth in the idea that now it's not just marketing for money. We'll have seen the last year has been a marketing about all these slogans about the pandemic, stay home, do that, do that, do that. They're always like in 3 bits as well, aren't they? If you didn't know anything about marketing before the pandemic, if you look at those adverts, they're constructed to try and do repetition, aren't they? So what the command is, and they're reinforcing it still about washing hands for 20 seconds. It's all, marketing is just trying to teach people what they're meant to think, which is where the ethics things come into it. We've also got this idea, so the globalization, that really matters for the brand that you're looking at, because actually, the challenge of marketing to different geographies is huge. But there is a massive thing as well about marketing with values. So actually caring about, because we shouldn't market at any cost, we should have a relationship with our customers where they feel good about it. And that's where we want to sort of look at how we can create things with them. So actually, restaurants where they're getting suggestions from their customers and they're creating, they're building more than just somewhere that you just go in and eat. There's more than that. There's actually something that's shaped. And in some restaurants, I think it might even be the Pizza Expresses, they have like local artwork. They try and, embed into the local community. So just in terms of the changing landscape, try and think of some ideas there that you can embed for the company that you're looking at. So for this section, I just wanted to give you a flavour for like what we need to look at in terms of the customer journey. And then after lunch, we're going to go and look at some marketing frameworks that I think you're going to find quite straightforward to use, that I'm going to suggest as the structure for your assignment when I come up with the assignment brief. So we started off by looking at the marketplace and looking at the marketing exchange and the idea of needs and wants and how we manage those. We've then come up with something that customers should really want because we've listened. And so to do that, but sometimes people still don't know what's available. So that's where you've got a challenge if you're launching something new. Then we need to have a programme that's on brand. So this programme has got to tie everything up depending on where we're in the marketplace. All our communications will stack up together. As a result, consumers' relationships are managed, we make money, they're happy, and actually that then creates loyalty and an ongoing business. So that's how it works at its best, but it's not always that easy, especially when you've got something like, can we start to work and then we have a pandemic and our business is closed. Are you all right if I wrap up there for half an hour and then I'll come back and I'm going to talk you through some frameworks that I think are going to be really useful for the assignment. This was just whetting the appetite really in terms of trying to think like a marketeer. So are you okay if we return at 10 to, yeah, if we do it 10 to 1, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. Okay, thank you. I'll stop recording this now and I'll put it on Moodle at the end of today.
Hannah, can we download these slides after sessions?
That you can download the slides now. They're all available on
Okay, yeah.
Moodle. All the material is already there for you. Okay.
Sweet.